Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of general guitar playing tips which I feel are often overlooked, and it's mostly intermediate level players who are guilty of not implementing these. The first thing I want to talk about is string muting, and the important thing is that this is a combination of both fretting hand and picking hand string muting, depending on context and what it is we're actually playing. For example, if I was doing some lead playing predominantly on my top 3 strings and doing a lot of bends and expressive playing with vibrato, something like this. If we're not doing any string muting, we can sometimes get unwanted string resonance, particularly from the lower 3 strings when we're doing really expressive bends on the top 3 strings, and this can muddy up our sound and have it sound just generally a little bit messy. So to combat this, what we can do is use the ball of our thumb of our picking hand to rest on those lower 3 strings. So I can still be picking the top 3 strings and doing these expressive bends and vibrato, but I'm not going to risk having any unwanted string resonance appear from the bottom 3 strings. A very quick caveat to this is that admittedly there might be times when we want to have a particularly raw sound in our lead playing, and in which case you might actively want to have that string resonance appear so that it just kind of sounds a little bit deliberately messy and rough around the edges. So it really is all about context, and it's up to you to decide when you want to use it. Now if I was doing some lead playing on the lower 3 strings, something like this, I still want to be doing some string muting, but this time it's going to be with my fretting hand, and it's particularly my index finger which is going to be doing a lot of the work, as I'm going to rest it very flat against the strings so that this lower part of my index finger is lightly touching particularly the higher strings, so that it's muting them and getting rid of any unwanted string resonance, or even accidentally catching one of the higher strings and having a horrible open string sound when we don't want it to. An extra thing to note here is that if I'm playing some notes on the A string with whatever finger of my fretting hand, I'm going to actually push that finger slightly into the low E string to make sure that the low E string is muted, and I'm not going to get any unwanted resonance from that. And if I'm playing any notes on the D string, I'm going to hook my thumb over the top of the neck to mute the low E string there as well. So everywhere I'm playing, I'm always trying to do whatever I can to eliminate any unwanted string resonance. Now thinking about our string muting when it comes to our rhythm playing, this won't be something which concerns us if we're playing either open chords or bar chord shapes which use all 6 strings. But if I'm doing any shapes where I don't use all 6 strings, I'm going to want to think about using my fretting hand to mute any of the unwanted strings. For example, if I've got my open D chord shape, what I like to do is hook my thumb over the top of the neck of the guitar to lightly touch the low E and A string, so that I can really freely strum through all of the strings, but I'm only going to hear the 4 strings that I actually want to. Similarly, if I have a C major open chord shape like this, you can either hook your thumb over the top again to mute that low E string, or you can slightly push this ring finger up into the low E string so that the low E string is muted by that ring finger. And we can again strum through all 6 strings, but we're only going to hear the notes that we actually want to. Now thinking about if I was going to do a bar chord a little bit higher at the neck of the guitar, something like this D minor 7 here, I can again use my fretting hand to mute the unwanted string, in this case the low E string again. I'm just going to slightly push up into the low E string with my index finger here, and we're going to make sure that that low E string is going to be completely eliminated. The second thing I'd like to talk about is related specifically to when we're playing something that we feel is well within our capabilities and playing standard. Now, it's no surprise that when we're playing something difficult, we're concentrating really hard and we have a high level of focus. So when we're playing something that we think is easy, we can quickly lose that focus, and even if we're not making any major mistakes, we could be playing in a way which is not overall consistent. Let's say, for example, we're playing a song which is just 3 easy open chords of G, C, and D, and it has a fairly simple strumming pattern. Now, we might think we can just coast our way through the song and not have to think about it too much, but there's a lot of questions we can ask ourselves and hold ourselves to account in terms of, are we actually playing this as perfectly as we could be? Thinking about our fretting hand, is every single one of those chords throughout the whole song being fretted completely accurately and sounding every string of the chord perfectly how we want it to be? Or is there the odd moment where we're accidentally misplacing a finger and we're getting either a little bit of string buzz or accidentally clipping an open string that we didn't want to be doing on that chord? In terms of our picking hand, are we staying consistent not just in terms of our timing, but also with our dynamic control? So, are we seeing a really nice, evenly balanced dynamic when we want it to be, and also a little bit of light and shade in terms of quieter and louder dynamics when we want there to be? And is that staying really nice and evenly controlled throughout the whole song? Also, talking about our strumming pattern, are we getting fatigued halfway through the song and starting to get a little bit lazy and dragging? Or are we sometimes rushing in certain sections of the song where we feel like we have a little bit too much energy to get rid of? We have to be very, very strict with ourselves. And the best way to hold ourselves to account is to record our own playing. Now, I'd recommend doing this along to a metronome. And if you haven't got a metronome, you can literally just put the word metronome into Google and there'll be one you can use there. And it can be something as rudimentary as just recording yourself on a voice note on your phone and then listening to yourself back and asking yourselves all those very strict questions about your playing, even when it's something super simple like just some open chords and a simple strumming pattern. Is it really as perfect as you can get it, or are there those tiny little inconsistencies appearing that you could work on? There truly is nothing more unforgiving than listening to your playing back on a recording. It's really different when you just hear yourself practicing. And sometimes it can be a good thing to have our tiny little inconsistencies amplified to us so that we know what it is we need to work on. And this is super obvious when we're actually playing something really simple. So there you have it. I hope you found this advice useful and it gave you something to think about in terms of your own playing. If you have any further questions, just leave a comment and I'll be more than happy to help. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel as it really helps me out. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.